Hi, my name is Mary Wong, and I'm a registered traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist in downtown Toronto, founder of Alive Holistic Health, and author of the book Pathways to Pregnancy. And welcome to my live post number 67. And it only occurred to me tonight, not by my own doing, by the way, that I've been doing this for over a year. And it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So I'm celebrating that I've been able to do this for over a year, and I've had a nice following, and I hope that this will grow. And the reason why I do these posts every Wednesday evening with you is because I want to make a difference in your lives. And it's really about talking about anything fertility related, as well as just overall health in general. And so tonight, I'm really honored to have with us Mark Sherman, who's the founder of Organic Conceptions. And I'll just let Mark introduce himself. Thank you for being here, Mark.
Oh, thank you, Mary. I didn't know I was number 67, so what an honor to have me. Well, yeah, hello, everyone, and wonderful. It's an honor for me to be here. My name is Mark Sherman, and I think maybe just to kind of get right to it, my wife and I struggled with infertility for close to a decade. Mary, you know our story pretty well, and on two separate occasions, I remind people twice that we became that story that I think so many couples hear about when they're on this journey and struggling, that you hear about that couple that struggled for years and they adopt a child or they move towards foster care or whatever it might be. And then there was this unexpected conception. And Mary, I've told you on several occasions that these are the stories that would frustrate my wife and I. They didn't really give us any kind of guidance or any kind of, didn't make us feel better. If anything, it was somebody else's success story. And at the end of the day, it made us feel like we were doing something that was not healthy for life. And but when you become that story on two occasions, it really led us to wanting to understand, is there more happening behind the scenes statistically? Are there patterns? Are there insights? Are there commonalities that can emerge and come forward to help really bring hope to couples and inspire couples, but most of all, provide them guidance on what can be learned here in the importance of optimizing your emotional health, well-being, and really the unity of the couple. So that led us to a several-year research project to kind of research these stories, and it led us to the creation of the organization Organic Conceptions.
And I love that, because when I discovered your Organic Conceptions, it was really in sync with what I'm already doing. So that's why I was so enthusiastic in reaching out to you and wanting to talk to you, because really, I alone, as many of you know, I also have a story to tell. But unlike yours, where you conceived naturally, I ended up having blocked fallopian tubes. So, and it was irreversible. So in this instance, it was, the inability of egg and sperm meeting. So no amount of relaxation would have helped us.
Sure.
However, having said that, despite that, and even having to reach out to technology, there was still a really beneficial thing by working with our psyches and our emotional well-being to still, even adding technology to it, I think it helped us succeed in our little Zoe, who we have today after 5 years.
Yeah, you can't, and for so many couples who are working with us who are currently in treatment, it's just, to your point, I think if treatment would be 100% success rate, if it was only the pure mechanics, I think that what we all have to appreciate is that there's a wonderful and powerful connection between our mind and body, and I think that that's what our hope is, that we can help awaken couples, that as easy it is to become solely focused on the pure mechanics and our lab results and our age, is that what would it look like if we made room to emotionally connect with where we are in this journey, and to really put ourselves in a position that can help really improve the odds of whatever particular path that we're down. Because Mary, for 3+ years of research, and I can explain what we did, me working with Dr. Kate Webster, who's a PhD in multivariate statistics, researching all variations of these stories, and in really starting to understand people with many different diagnoses, from unexplained infertility to you name the gamut, and seeing the importance of couples coming to this place of forgiving themselves, their bodies, starting to look differently at what their journey might be telling them, and how the journey could potentially be the preparation for them, their role as parents, and then for really the greater life in general. It's just, it's too powerful to ignore the importance of our emotional health.
Absolutely. And I love it that the study are in these real life stories because that's the point. It's real and it's life, and that's where we can draw hope from.
That's
And
right.
and that's the premise of my book, Pathways to Pregnancy, because I know for myself, what provided me hope were my patient stories. So I just mentioned that it took us 5 years. Well, I had patients ask me, how could you do this for a living when you're struggling yourself? And I always came back saying, you know what? I had always found it hopeful because even though I see my patients in their depths of despair, I typically see them on the other side of it. So they were also my points of inspiration. And so
That's
I
right.
love your work in that, you are literally using, how many people did you study?
We've not stopped. We continue to get stories of couples that whether someone's in the struggle or people that kind of merged on the other side. At Dr. Kate, as a philosophy is we continue to build upon the data of research. Every story, every narrative, every fear, sorrow, joy continues to shed light on how we can understand more about the powerful role that our minds play in conception. And we're going to continue to research this thing and continue to make that connection for couples. But it's funny. I agree. We as a society, we evolve through shared learning and experiences. But so often these stories of these couples that emerge on the other side, I know for my wife and I, we almost become resistant. That's their story. But 3 years later, Mary, we uncovered these kind of 3 chapters that emerged in these 9 transitions that can really start to finally give us answers to really the psychology that's happening and how we can potentially really optimize. If a woman is going into this feeling damaged and broken and less than, and this great amount of anxiety of why is this not happening, and we start to architect a story that's really based by fear, and it has many false and limiting beliefs. And that was our first chapter in our program, is this conception of doubt, and it leads to having a very diminished sense of self.
Mm-hmm.
And that is ultimately the way we start thinking about ourselves, our bodies, and our relationship with this process. And the way you think will lead to how you start to act. And that kind of leads us to this next module or part of the program. But yeah, it's the evidence became powerful. I remember Dr. Kate, when we were conducting all this research, she said there might not be a common thread across all these stories. Maybe they're just these true one-off instances of couples that just did these, shifted their path, whatever it might be. And we had some people that were in treatment, but the way in which they thought about themselves in this process changed, and they led to a successful outcome. So yeah, we have to pay attention to it and certainly add it into the regimen of all the things that we're looking at.
So I want to add in this. Thank you for that. It's very insightful. And I think what I want to have the takeaway for people is that, there is support and there is help. And I know I have certainly seen this in practice where I'll say, oh, gee, you might want to consider going to a support group of some sort. And there's some resistance for some people because for a couple of reasons. One, because it's a private issue and they don't want to share. And secondly, they're busy already. It's like, how can I fit one more thing in my day?
Sure.
And that may add to my stress level. So that's actually 3 things, right? So adding more stress. So I love it that you came up with this program where you can basically be in the comfort of your own home while you're being guided through to all these positive stories with very, concepts and very real findings as to, some of well, actually, you tell me a bit more about what the program is. Like, how many weeks is it?
Yeah, so I think you said something that's important. I think for any couple that's on listening, that idea of adding yet one more thing to we're drinking from a fire hose when we're struggling. My wife and I, any one thing you do leads to 3 other suggestions of other things you need to consider. And at some point we become overwhelmed, we become fatigued. And unfortunately, we're really a society of kind of doing versus being. So the idea of making space. So yeah, we really created a model, and we had so many couples say that, whether it go to therapy or not, another meeting, another session, another cost, this idea of a self-discovery tool in the privacy of the couple's own home. And I really stress the couple. We like the couple to spend 1 hour a week for 8 weeks to really go through these 9 critical transitions that can finally bring us guidance relative to how we can start to change the way in which we are in many ways resisting this journey that we're on and starting to change the connection with it. That 1 hour a week for 8 weeks, we think is a small amount of time. And for so many couples, it became the answers, really resided within these couples. So yeah, it's in the private, it's not replacing therapy by no means. We're not trying to suggest that, but we've had so many couples, kind of that mainstream couple that's just trying to push and fight through it, who couples say they laughed listening to the program, they cried, and they started to create boundaries. They can find themselves in these stages. We had a doctor in Long Island, New York. He said our works reminds him of the stages of grief, Mary, similar to the fact, in the respect that there was these transitions that were common across a couple's struggle, and certainly those that emerged on the other side. And when you can help expose those and help normalize an experience for a couple to say, oh my gosh, I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought I was broken to feel those feelings or to go through those particular transitions. So our goal is to normalize the experience, validate the extreme emotions and anger and jealousy that comes with it. And only until you normalize and validate, then you can start to empower couples. And really, that's the ultimate design, is that couple that comes together, creates their own roadmap that feels right. They start to trust themselves and trust their intuition, because when you take on the identity that you're struggling, there's a level of compliance that comes with that identity. All the things we're supposed to do and not do to essentially be a good patient. And we're going to try to get the couple back together and make decisions that intuitively feel very right for them as individuals and as couples.
Well, that's awesome. And in fact, I love it that you say it's like an hour a week, because I can look at it as, oh, gee, this actually can be like a date night, and a very active one, right? Because I think people who's trying to conceive, it just becomes all consuming, and this job becomes like a full-time job. So to sit down as a couple and to work this out and to understand what stages of fertility they're at, I think that's so helpful. And as a couple and as themselves going through the process, right, and understanding each other as a couple and separate individuals.
And the journey that the woman's experience is different than their partner. Neither right or wrong, but our inability to validate when one's trying to be protective and it'll be okay and things will work out, and another is feeling, this is my identity, it's the reason I'm on the planet, and every day as time goes on, we're running out of time. So neither right or wrong, but through the program, we are actually analyzing what both are feeling, and this program gives them the language, gives them the tools to come together. And as you know, Mary, going through some of our work, this isn't meditation. This is us truly understanding, statistically helping couples understand, what are these 9 transitions? What do they sound like? We have voices, interviews brought in here so they can hear, that sounds like me. And then Dr. Kate brings her psychology understanding to help understand why we get there. It's normal to understand why we get into that place. And then there's some journaling exercises and whatnot through all these lessons learned that can help start to change the way they might think of themselves, the way that particular piece might be manifesting in their journey. We expose things that are there, but they might not have had the tools or the language or the words. And when you do that as a couple together, 1 hour a week, we had a couple say, we turned off the voice 1 hour a week, and we got together, pour some tea, have some wine, and you make space. And I think we can't ignore these stories any longer. We're not suggesting that our program is an end-all, at-all. It's a complement to whatever a couple might be doing, but we have to make space for ourselves in this process. This process might be different than the way we've been able to plan and time our lives and all the other things that were very much in our control, Mary, things that we could will to happen. We've been told that if something's not working, we plowed through it. And this is a program that might help us understand how to flow with it than through it.
Absolutely. And I love it that it's a program, and I love it that it can be quite individually specific. And, I've heard through some of my patients, when you go to those live support groups, it sometimes can be a hit or miss, because it also is dependent on the group dynamics. Sure. So sometimes you can have a group that's quite positive, and I've witnessed or I've heard some stories where women are in a place of, oh my gosh, I go there and I feel more depressed.
Yes.
Right? Because someone is complaining about something, and then it's just like this whole swirling, everybody's swirling downward this bottomless pit of despair versus being more helpful. So I think you providing these solid guided tools is very positive for an individual and a couple.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I think the couple is sometimes dismissed here, and of course it's a couple act. We're talking about conceiving here, but generally the women take on a lot of that ownership, and I think even we have a lot of practitioners that are using our program to bring structure to support groups, so that way these things can stay on track and have some flow to it. But in many cases, they're women are going to these things. But this is, yeah, we really hope that we can connect with that couple together into a community effect is very important to come with our peers and understand that others are experiencing something similar can be very, very powerful. But like you said, not for everyone. And a lot of times it's the woman, not necessarily both partners together for those. And I think that that's a gap.
Yes, yes, absolutely true. And it is definitely, oh, there's some feedback or something. There's some background noise. Okay, I think we're okay again.
Okay.
Anyway, and for those that are practitioners watching, I think this is very helpful, this kind of tool, this organic conceptions, because of course, as much as we'd like to believe that we are everything for everyone, we are not. We can't. And we can only be great at for so much, right? Like you can't do it all for every patient. So it's great. I love it that this is a resource for me to be able to provide for our patients.
Yeah.
And as I said to you in the past, I said, oh, perhaps we can actually physically collaborate and do something in the future as well, because you're doing great work. And as I said, it seems that we're quite on the same page in terms of reflecting back upon real cases.
Yes.
And how we transcend our difficulties, and there are very tangible things and strategies and tactics,
Sure.
and the way of being that can,
Yes.
right?
And Mary, this is hard work. And I always try to say, if I'm the listener right now, and again, my wife and I for close to a decade, and I can't tell you how much loss was in those years of struggling and how many things we dismissed that we cared about and things that we like to do as a couple as we just tried to push through this, fight through this, solve it and fix it. But this takes vulnerability. It takes courage. It's easy to work on all the things that you can physically see and do and change diet and adjust this and all the, you Google preconception health, you'll see you won't be short on things to consider doing. But the idea of making space for our emotional health, well-being, and unity is just one of the things that might seem like last on the list, but for so many, it mattered. And I think working with folks like yourself and our ability to take this program and as you know, have the practitioner training where couples are already going to you, they're already trusting you, and our ability to have partners like you that can help guide and coach as the couples at home going through these 9 transitions, and your help there to help them understand what they're learning and seeing and how this is manifesting and changing the way they are evolving through this process. It's a very powerful combination for sure. We're lucky to have people like you for sure.
Well, thank you for being here with us. And yeah, I look forward to seeing more of what you do. And you were going to provide something perhaps for our viewers?
Yeah, I did. We did. We put together. So I think there's a couple different ways couples can listen. They can do this 1 hour a week for 8 weeks, or there's some couples that just said they want full access to the program so they can go in at their own pace. So for either option, we put together a coupon code. It's Mary Wong 48, all one word, and that will give them a 40% discount on any of the listening options. So Mary Wong 48. We're doing it for the next 48 hours, but we would be honored for couples to consider how they might bring our work in as part of their overall journey. And through all the feedback we're getting, we had a woman just write us from Ireland. She said she went through the program. She literally wrote, Mary, I didn't realize the amount of resentment that I had. In parentheses, she wrote, for the doctors, for my husband, for my family, for the world. And she didn't realize she was carrying that. And the doctor who reached out to me said, you know what, if there was a physical situation that we saw in a woman, a blockage of any sort, we would, of course, fix it. And there's these emotional blockage that can happen normally just by going through the struggle. We had an expectation of what we thought was going to happen. We're experiencing this month-to-month delay, and there's this buildup of resistance that's happening here, and we have to address it as we would in the physical state. So yeah, we'd be honored to pass that discount forward for anyone that's any one of your viewers.
Well, thank you. That's very, very generous. And, you also hit the nail on the head in terms of this. And that's what I espouse when I am in practice, where, people always, as you know, will say, what more can I do? Well, I always say, how are we being? Because we're human beings, not doings. So how are we tackling this in the way of being rather than doing? So perhaps it's not about one more thing to do. You are adding one thing to do actually because you're doing the program. But really what you're looking at is how you're being in your
It's
life.
true. That's exactly right. Yeah, we
Thank
have couples say we got our life back. We found ourselves again, and we started to find the meaning for what our journey's telling us, and actually starting to trust where this process may take you. Very, very powerful. That's why we named the program The Journey to Parenthood and Beyond, because I think a lot of what you can learn here could be for any struggle. In that many times the struggle at the moment might look at the worst possible situation. Why is this happening? Everything about this is wrong. And a lot of times in retrospect, we look at that door that got slammed in our face became the opportunity to shift paths. Then we met somebody else. It led us to different work that we're in, whatever it might be. And I know that's easy to say, but I think through all this research and all these stories and through the program, couples will get to that state of being, to your point.
All right. Well, thank you again for being here with us, and
You're
I'd love to have you back another time, sometime in the future. And so for those of you who are still here, please tune in next week, next Wednesday, 8 p.m., because I'll be interviewing Dr. Gleischer, Norbert Gleischer from New York. And I'm so thrilled to be able to have him as I question him about PGS, the pre-implantation genetic screening. And he's going to take us through that testing where we see now that perhaps it's not the end all be all of tests when it comes to chromosomal issues with regards to embryos. And to be continued, we'll talk about it, and you can bring in your questions ahead of time if you'd like. So that would be next Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be here, be square. Love you guys. Thanks for joining, and take care. Bye now.
Thanks again, Mary. Bye.
Thank you so much, Mark. Take care.
Very welcome. Thank you.